I'm Jake Brown and welcome to Trophy Teaches. At Trophy Properties and Auction, our team of land specialists includes whitetail, waterfowl, and WRP land management experts, a PhD in forestry, fish and lake management experts, wildlife biologists, experienced farmers, and we have a wealth of knowledge in our team and in our network. We want to share that knowledge with you so you can be better informed about how to best take care of your property and prepare for the upcoming seasons. Today we're featuring Jason Wallingford. He's the president of our auction division, and he has been farming since he was a little kid. He knows tillable like the back of his hand. We also met up with Zach Nixon of Beck's Hybrids to learn more about corn and beans and how farmers decide what seeds to plant, how to project yields, and how that can affect land prices and you, the potential real estate buyer or seller. We hope you find it informative and entertaining. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and remember, be proud of your trophy.
Hey folks, Jason Wallingford here with Trophy Properties and Auction. Today we're up here in Lewis County, Missouri, just outside of Monticello at Casey Bear Ag. And today I'm here with Zach Nixon, seed advisor. Advisor with
Beck's Hybrids. Yep. So appreciate you guys having me out. Like Wally said, I'm Zach Nixon. I'm with Beck's Hybrids and seed advisor for about 4 years now here in Northeast Missouri. And we traveled out here to Monticello, like Jason said, with our dealer, Michael Casebeer with Casebeer Ag. And we're just going to kind of go over some of our products and different yield projections and things like that today.
Sounds great. Let's go check out these test plots.
All right.
So going down through here, Zach, I noticed all these signs and all these different numbers. What do all these different numbers mean?
Yeah, so kind of what we're doing here, this is what we call a test plot. A lot of our dealers put these in, and what we're doing is we're going to put all the different varieties or hybrids of corn that we offer. So you see here on the first sign, it's going to say 5824. That's a 108-day corn product. So when I say 108-day, that's the relative maturity of that product.
Gotcha.
And so all of this corn is going to mature at different rates based on the growing degree units that it is able to obtain from the sunlight.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do they have like a 90-day corn?
Yeah, so around here in Northeast Missouri, there are a few guys that are gonna try out some, 100-day, 105-day, but it seems like the sweet spot for Northeast Missouri, as far as, Highway 70 and north, you're gonna see a lot of 108-day to 119-day.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the sweet spot to really maximize yield and really push things to the top.
So Zach, I heard you say sweet spot. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so what we've noticed around here is that we've kind of got what I call the sweet spot for as far as maximum yield potential as well as dry down and things like that as harvestability.
All right, I'm gonna hop in here real quick and expand a little bit on what Zach is talking about with dry down. So when it comes to these crops, moisture is a huge factor. If there's too much moisture left in the plant when it's harvested, it ruins the crop. You get stuff like mold, fungus, it doesn't store well, and obviously that's bad. To prevent that, the corn has to dry out. And so there's two ways you can do this. You can do it naturally, or you can do it in the dryer at the co-op. It's better to do it naturally if possible because the co-op charges a drying fee for the fuel and for the shrinkage that takes place. When harvesting, you want it to be about a 15% moisture level, and corn dries out at around 0.5 to 1% per day, depending on location. This is actually a contributing factor as to why it's so humid in the Midwest during the late summer. It's known as corn sweat or bean sweat. An acre of corn can produce about 4,000 gallons of water per day. That's enough to fill a swimming pool. And in our area of central northern Missouri, we've had a lot of rain this year, so tons of moisture. We got to get that moisture out of the crop naturally, and so it's kind of a timing game. All right, back to Jason and Zach.
We don't want to throw out a 120-day corn and then we go in to harvest it and it's still at 25-30% moisture, right? So what we do around here that seems to work for our customers is anywhere from that 110 to 115 day right here in Northeast Missouri seems to be what I call the sweet spot, as when it's time to harvest and guys are getting geared up ready to go. that corn is also ready to go, right?
Okay.
It gets down to that 18 to 19% where guys are really starting to harvest lately.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take, we like to have it at 15, 14 and a half to
Absolutely.
take it
Yep.
to the elevator, but anymore we're seeing guys get started around that 18%. They'll artificially dry it down themselves through their dryers or have the elevator dry it down.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Right now I think I'm hearing reports out there, there's some 24 and 25% corn out
Right.
there, and guys are already starting to shell that. Why would it be better off to leave it out in the field and let Mother Nature take it down, that 17, 18%?
Right, so biggest thing when you talk about moisture in corn is gonna be, are we able to hold it? Are we able to store it? Putting it into that bin at 24%, it's not possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get hot spots, you're
Yep.
gonna get mold, and there's things that are, it's gonna turn into a disaster at the end of the day. What a lot of guys have now is artificial dryers. They can go ahead and they can dry that grain down to that, 14 and a half, 15%.
And just using propane?
Yep, propane. Sometimes you'll see guys with natural gas.
Okay.
But what it's doing is it's pretty much cooking the corn.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's a benefit on that is if you look at the kernel size, after it is dried down, it doesn't really shrink a whole lot.
Yep.
Okay, and so you're not really losing the yield.
Okay.
And so you'll see a lot of guys go out there at that 20, 21, 22%. They'll throw it in the dryer, turn it on, they'll pretty much cook it.
Yep.
You're essentially cooking that corn down to that 14.5% where it can be stored in the bin.
Just taking that moisture right out of that kernel.
Just cooking it right out. Yep.
Because basically, if we were to take it down to the local co-op and it's testing 21%, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't you're given to 16 and below, anything over 16, you're going to take a dock probably?
Yeah, so you're going to take a dock. I believe, I'm going to have to look, I think you're closer to 15 is where you got to be without a dock. So
Okay.
if I take in 18% corn, they are going to give me a drying fee.
Yep.
So I will pay for that drying fee
So
as well
basically
as the moisture.
the co-op is going to dry it down.
Yes, the co-op
Okay.
will dry that down for you. The thing I like about 18%, that seems to be a good spot as far as standability.
Okay.
I don't have to worry about diminishing stock quality and things like that, and the corn going down as I'm waiting for it to dry down.
Okay.
Okay, and so I see that 18% corn. I'm going to go ahead and get it shelled, take it to the elevator, and I'm going to let them go ahead and dry that corn down for me.
Got it.
As far as the Beck's lineup goes, this is how we classify our products. So the first two numbers is going to be all about maturity. That's going to be the how many growing degree units is needed for that product. So with this here, we're just going to add 50 to the front two numbers. That's going to give us 115-day corn. Okay, and so that's telling you that the relative maturity of this product is 115 days. Now, the next two numbers is going to be the family that product's coming from. This is the 85 family inside the Beck's lineup. That can tell you that if we see another product out here with 85, it's just going to tell you that they're closely related. They may share a parent, they may be, some people call them cousins. So the next one is going to be all of the traits that are offered inside of that product. So right here, you're going to see TC, that's Tricepta. That's going to be a bug trait that's offered inside this product as far as the genetics of it, right? It's a trait. It is bred into that product. So if you hear non-GMO versus GMO, this would be a GMO, right? So what the Tricepta is going to give you is that's going to give you protection from certain insects. When we talk about cutworm in the early springs, if you get a really bad cutworm hatch, you're going to see the cutworm go through. They're going to bore through the corn plant and they're going to kill that corn plant when it's only V1, V2, V3, about that tall. If you notice here, you're going to see V2P. That means it's a double pro. That means it's going to offer the Roundup Ready trait. It's also going to, with the Tricepta, it's also going to offer above ground corn earworm protection as well. So if we get earworm on these ears of corn, they're going to eat a few kernels. They're going to go ahead and die from that Tricepta trait that is in that corn plant.
So you're telling me that everything you just told us is bred right into the corn itself. It's
Yes.
not a coating or a powder that's on the kernel when you dump it into the box. It's actually in there.
Right.
So if an earworm eats into the kernel, it's going to kill it.
Right. So that's exactly that's the power of genetically modified crops.
With that being said, we don't really need to go back over it with another application spraying chemicals on the crop, correct?
Right. And that's where I think the importance really falls in this Tricepta's trait here is there's a lot of times where we would normally have to go back and spray an insecticide, which can be pretty harmful, right?
Okay.
But with this genetically modified crop, we don't have to go back in and spray that extra chemical down with an airplane or with a, a drone or something like that. And so I think that's very important what, the trait packages that we can offer these days, what it does for the farmer to not only become, more profitable per acre, but also less chemical per acre.
Got it. So I'm guessing Beck seeds probably, it's going to be a little more cost for this number.
Right.
But at the end, you should get it back because you shouldn't have to have the co-op come out here and spray another chemical on top of it.
Right. So you're not only going to save money on chemical, you're also going to save money on crop damage, right?
Okay.
So
because
at the end of the day, the insects aren't going to eat your crop.
Well, do we want to dive in here and maybe pull a couple more ears and,
let's
see
look
what this is going to do?
Let's look at more of a racehorse hybrid.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
So we're right here on the split row. We've got 6414 here on our right. We've got 6374 here on our left. These are our 1 and 2 products here for the state of Missouri, and so I thought it'd be a great place to take Jason in, show you guys kind of what we're looking at, and take a peek at a few ears.
Let's do it.
All right, so we're in here. We just got 6414 here. It's kind of a number here that we're going to put on a little bit tougher dirt, as well as a versatility, Jason. It's kind of...
So tougher dirt, let me stop you there. Tougher dirt, are we talking maybe a Class B, Class C soil type there, you reckon?
Yeah, I'm going to throw something like that in there.
One thing you'll hear a lot in land real estate, especially tillable ground and auctions, is Class A, B, and C soil types. Different soil types produce different quality of plants and they demand different prices. So we're going to hop to Jason while he explains the importance of soil types and what you need to be looking for when you're considering buying or selling tillable ground.
A Class A soil, you're going to be able to have 34,000 pop and it's going to produce. As long as Mother Nature provides the rain and the soil or the sun when needed. The Class A is going to be just like I said, your Putnam, your Mexico. When you get further up north, up where I grew up in Clark County, Missouri, we're going to get into some Edina and some Adco. That's a really good prairie dirt up further north as we go.
When you talk Class A versus Class B, I think at the end of the day, nutrient holding capacity is the biggest difference in Class A to Class B. You're talking about dirt that, you go over into some of these heavier dirt areas, these Class A soils, they can go a little bit longer without rain.
Yeah.
Just simply due to the nutrients that are in the soil, the CECs of the soil, if you want to kind of dive into that. But there's just a lot that goes into having good heavy dirt, that Class A soil. It's a lot more forgiving.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
And plus, our fertilizers are, they're so much better than they were when I grew up in the 80s. But you could take a Class B farm with the soil not quite as productive, but if you want to pour the fertilizer to it, you can make that, be a comparable farm to a Class A farm. So it just depends what the farmer wants to do and how much money they want to put into that crop.
Right.
So many times investors call and they say, hey, I'd like to buy me a farm, and I'm looking at, from an investment standpoint, something that I can hold for years and pass on to my family. And, they send me a farm that, honestly, it should have been a cattle farm.
Right.
And, we were talking earlier, back when corn jumped to $8, 10, 12 years ago, there were a lot of really good pasture farms that were converted into row crop farms. And we had some inflated cash rent prices, and, investors jumped on them because the rate of return was good.
Right.
But, when the commodity prices start to pull back, your cash rent prices are going to go down. And so you're losing that rate of return. So I think from a real estate investment standpoint, you're better off to spend additional money per acre and buy you a really good farm. Right. That farm, if you buy a good farm, it's always going to be a good farm. You can buy a less productive farm and try to make it a really good productive farm, but you're going to have to really pour the fertilizer to it. You're going to have to make sure your lime is spot on. And with that being said, that's additional cost to try to take a Class B farm to a Class A farm with input costs so high, you're just putting that much more money into it. I think you'd be better off instead of spending maybe $8,500 per acre for a farm, and maybe jump up and spend $12,000 for a really good farm, because it's always going to be a really good farm.
It's always going to pay.
That soil that's out there is always going to be there.
Right.
And I just think from an investment standpoint, you're better off to spend the additional money and just buy you a damn good farm.
Right.
No matter how much you spend on input costs, you can't change the soil types. That's why some land goes for $1,000 an acre and some goes for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 an acre. All right, back to the corn.
some farms that maybe your grandpa had cows on, but now they're a row crop farm.
Yep.
And so this is the kind of corn that we're going to put there. The reason we do that is the stress tolerance. It's also got decent standability there into the late season as some of this clay pan soil kind of quits giving nutrients to that corn.
Okay.
We want a product that's going to be able to stand as well as yield.
You got some nice ears in here.
Yeah, that
looks really good.
Yeah, we're real excited. I think we'll just go ahead and pull a few of these off and kind of talk through that and show you guys what we've got here. So something I always try to do, Jason, is when I pull an ear, for yield estimates, I always make sure there's a competitive plant on each side.
Yeah.
If you're going to pull off an ear with no plant beside it, it's got all the nutrients, it's got all the capabilities to be just a monster ear.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
So that's something I always look for. See, I just pulled off of here, so I've got a plant on each side.
Yep.
This field right here is planted around 34,000 population. That's 34,000 plants per acre.
Okay.
Okay, and so when you take that into consideration, you're thinking, hey, at the end of the day, we want 33,000 because you're going to lose a few to pests, you're going to lose a few to just environmental conditions. But if we have 33,000 of these ears out there, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, got it.
So
is 33,000 kind of what you would recommend for this number on a normal hill farm?
Yeah, so on a normal hill farm, I'm actually going to back this number up on population. I'm going to tell you to go clear down to 28,000 if you'd like to.
Yep, that makes sense.
Simply due to what the corn plant can flex.
Yep.
Okay, and flex is a thing where this ear may have 16 around right now, but if we back the population down, there's going to be less competition.
Yeah.
Right, on each side. So that product's going to be able to get more nutrients.
Yep.
You might see 18 around.
Oh, yeah.
While at 34,000 right now, we are, let's say 35 long. If we back that population up, it might go to 40. It might get a little bit more kernels on that ear just due to less competition.
Yep.
So this is a product that I would definitely recommend backing the population off because I'm looking at flex. Okay. Sometimes we get a product that's determinate ear. Sometimes we get a product that's a flex ear.
Okay.
So this is definitely a flex ear, and that's what we're going to be looking at here as we start counting kernels and going over yield estimates.
Sounds good. I noticed a few of these stalks in here are trying to put on a second ear.
Yeah, and that just, to me, that just tells me we've had a great year.
Absolutely.
We've seen a lot of rain. The crop has had everything it's wanted.
Yep.
And so that's something I look for as we go out too. You made a great point. They're putting on second ears. They're saying, hey, we're doing good.
Yep.
We could go ahead and try to put on another ear, but
yep. And 34,000 pop. If you had a 28,000 pop here, you'd probably see even bigger second ear and possibly a third ear.
Right.
And at times I have seen stalks, 4 and 5. Now, of course, they're not all great big ears, but it tells you the plant has done really well.
Right. Make a great point.
All right. Well, let's go out here and check that ear out.
Okay. Yeah, so just kind of looking at some of this corn we pulled out here, like I said, this was a 34,000 population, so that's telling you there's 34,000 plants per acre. That's how farmers kind of go ahead and judge a field, is by per acre.
Yep.
That's also when I tell you, when we're talking bushels of yield, that's going to be per acre basis. So,
nice. Well, one thing, I'll stop you real quick, I'm sorry, but one thing I was wanting to ask you, so many times I hear out there, people are giving us a projected yield per acre. Yeah. So how are they doing that, Zach?
Yeah, so the biggest thing we're going to do is we're going to go out here and we got to know our population. We got to know, okay, how many plants are there going to be on this acre?
And on this corn number here, we know there's 34,000 per acre, correct?
Yep, there's 34,000 out here where we pulled these ears. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go out here and randomly pull a few ears.
Yeah.
Now, something I always try to do is make sure that we are not pulling an ear that has a skip beside it, okay? Because you're going to get just a big ginormous ear, right? But that's not going to be indicative of what the whole field is.
Correct.
So I'm going to take a random sample of this corn, just like we've done here, make sure there's a competitive plant on each side, and then we're just going to count rows up and we're going to count rows around.
Okay.
So something that's kind of interesting about corn that some people don't know is there's always an even number of rows around.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be even.
It's always going to be even. So you're either going to have 12, 14, 16, or 18.
Okay.
And then on the really good fields, you're going to get up to 20, 22, 24.
Oh, nice.
So that's when you know you're really into something. But I'm just going to count around here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 around.
All right.
So I've got 18 around, and then I'm just going to count the length. Okay, so I've got up to around 33. I always stop a little bit back.
So 33 kernels in length.
Yep.
And 18 kernels
around.
in diameter.
Yep.
All right.
And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and get the calculator out, and I'm going to start doing some math. I'm going to take 18 times 33, and that number is?
Well, you want me to do that? Hold on, let me grab my phone real quick. I was going to do it in my head, but it might be quicker to do it on the phone here.
Or real estate agents.
Yeah.
We're not engineers.
Yeah, I can't do that.
All right. So we're going to take 18 around times 33 in length.
Yep.
All right, that puts us at 594 kernels per ear.
Per ear.
All right.
Now, I'm not going to tell you we got 34,000 standing out there. There's a few skips here and there. I'm going to tell you we got about 32.5.
32.5.
So we're going to take that times 32,500.
So 594 kernels times our projected population, which we're going to go with 32.5.
Yep, I always try to go on the conservative side when I'm doing a yield test.
All right, so that put us at 19,305,000.
Okay, so now the math we're going to do is we're going to divide it by kernels per bushel.
Kernels per bushel.
Per bushel.
Okay.
And so on this product here, see, so that's another thing about it is depth plays a big role in that. As you see here, we kind of look and check on these kernels. We're going to see how deep they are, because some products you're going to have 90,000 kernels in a bushel.
Okay.
On a product like this beside us here, you might have 72 to 75.
Okay.
Just simply based on kernel depth and kernel size.
Okay.
The ear might be smaller, but the depth of the kernel plays a big role.
All right.
Just for safe measures, I'm probably going to go ahead and divide by 85,000.
All right, divide by 85,000. And
Now
where did we get this number?
That's saying there's 85,000 kernels in a bushel.
Okay.
That's kind of an industry standard.
All right.
Actually, the standard I'd say is probably around 80, but I always shoot on the conservative side. Sometimes you talk to some agronomists, they're going to do 90,000, because the last thing you want to do is go and tell somebody, hey, you've got this high of a yield level, when really it's more down here. So you always want to be conservative.
All right.
As you're doing some yield.
Well, that number come up to be 227.
So that's just saying 227 bushels per acre.
Per acre.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so that is, that's kind of what we figured for this kind of year. And like I said, we did 32.5 for a population. There's a chance that there's 33 to 34 in some areas.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so I always shoot conservative. I always do the 85,000 or higher on kernels per bushel. That's just something that when I go and talk to a farmer, when I go and talk to some of my dealers, I don't want to shoot for the moon as far as a yield.
Yeah.
We're looking for real numbers, right?
Yes.
So now if they get in the combine, it comes up 250, 240, they're just going to be happy.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Absolutely. Yep. So we went through the 14 here, and we come up with 227. Are there some other numbers in here maybe we could look at and kind of compare?
Yeah.
numbers?
So something I think is really good. You brought that up. This is going to be more of your workhorse hybrid. If you hear a seed guy talk about workhorse, that's going to be the product that's going to always be steady and true for you. You're never going to see the absolute just rock star yields out of it.
Yeah.
But it will always be steady. And so if you're looking for a product on some Class A dirt that's really going to push, it's really going to push that yield to the next level, you're going to look for what we call a racehorse. Okay, and I think we can move down here and look at some of our more racier hybrids if you guys would like to take a peek.
Yeah, I'd love to. Zach, you know what? I've been in a couple of these kernels, and I notice there's a little bit of a pop, but there's also, it's kind of, soft yet.
Right.
What do you reckon that number of corn is right now? Here, and it is what, September 3rd.
September 3rd.
So, what do you reckon that moisture's testing out there?
I would say just kind of knowing where this corn was planted as far as timeliness. I would say that we are in the mid-30s right now. I'm going to go ahead and break. So that's 114-day corn. So that's a little bit later maturity. That's all based on the growing degree units and things like that. But when I go ahead and take this kernel off, and I'm just going to scrape the tip off right there, and I'm going to look, and I really don't see any black layer. Black layer is where that kernel goes ahead and shuts down, and it's no longer receiving nutrients from that corn plant. Industry would tell you that black layer is around 35% moisture.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess that this is just this is going to be about high 30s corn.
High 30s.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So.
All right.
Yeah, and if you
Well,
notice,
the fodder's still pretty green out there.
Yeah, if the plant health's looking great.
It is.
Something we've got to worry about this time of year is checking for a new disease called tar spot. That's kind of what guys are really looking for. We also check for stalk rot and things like that this time of year to make sure we're going to have standability through harvest.
Yeah.
But as I kind of look out through here, I don't see a ton of tar spot. I believe this corn was fungicide, or did receive fungicide application with a drone earlier in the year by Case Beer Ag. And so it's looking good, looking healthy, got a nice green color to it, and it's still pumping test weight into those kernels.
Yep.
So.
Yep. You know, we were talking earlier, you want to go ahead and we'll walk on down to this next number?
Yeah.
And, you know, we were kind of talking earlier about 227 bushels to the acre possible yield there based on our formula. One thing, you know, we have had a lot of rain here, and this year has just been fantastic for this location, Northeast Missouri. I mean, we've got rain every time it was needed.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of hot weather. You know, I mean, it's just been beautiful. You couldn't ask for a better growing season than this year. With that being said, yeah, we're going to have some great yields, but how much? I mean, the plant is probably taking more nutrients out of the ground to produce all this, correct? So, I mean, you know, the guys are really going to have to spend some money to make sure they get enough fertilizer put back in for next year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about fertilizer, I think it's always good to me, that's a good investment, because I always feel like if you put on more P and K as far as potassium and phosphorus, you're going to go ahead and get that money back in yield years down the road. And to me, that's a good way to invest on the generations coming.
Yeah.
I think the more you give back to the soil, kind of like we talked about earlier, the more you're setting up the next generation to be successful. Now, kind of something we're seeing with these good years, this good rain, we're kind of seeing some of these more nitrogen efficient products not using as much nitrogen as they used to maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
So we've got products out here that really respond well to extra nitrogen. We've got some that are efficient. And you know, the old rule of thumb back 10 years ago was, hey, we're a pound of nitrogen to 1 bushel of corn.
Okay.
What we're seeing anymore is that's not necessarily the case. It's more based on timing. And so if we can actually get that nitrogen put into the ground at the right time, we can save money on nutrients as far as nitrogen goes and still raise the maximum crop over here on the backside.
Okay.
And so that's something that we're really pushing with our PFR data and our farm research that Beck's Hybrids does is, hey, it's not always about putting maximum amount of nutrients down. It's about putting them down efficiently.
Okay.
And putting them down at the right time.
So Zach, we walk down this row here. What number are we in right now?
Yeah, so this is going to be our 6574.
Okay, so that's 115 day corn.
Yep,
okay.
So this is going to be 115 day corn in that 74 family.
Yep.
But this is just something that we really like here in Northeast Missouri. We've also noticed something interesting this year is that we've got a lot of tip back in some of our little bit later planted corn.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I don't know as far as what some guys are thinking is that we just had a really good flex year. It had a lot of rainfall. That ear was just continuing to grow longer and longer, because if you go ahead and count that out, even with the tip back, there's still 38 to 40 kernels.
So you and I both know what tip back is, but some of our viewers, explain what tip back is.
Right, so if you look here on tip back, that's what a farmer would call tip back right there.
Yep, just didn't fill out all the way to the end, did it?
Yep, and so it either ran out of nutrients late season, or there's a chance that the population was higher. So a super high population, that's what you're gonna get, because we're just robbing nutrients from the different plants side
You think
to side.
maybe the plant could have got sick too or something?
There's a chance that could have happened. It could have been hot during pollination. There's just so many different things that play a role in that.
Yep.
To me, I think this one here is more high population.
Okay.
But you still got a really nice ear there. If you go ahead and count it around, and if you had 34,000 of those out there, you're going to be pretty happy.
It's going to be a good year.
It's going to be a good year.
Let's pull that one other one there, and let's go out here and run through the formula again.
Right.
All right. All right, Zach, I've got the calculator ready.
All right,
Let's go ahead and see what this one here is going to yield.
Right, so we're just going to count rows around. That's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 around.
Okay, and that other one was 18.
18,
so, all right.
Yep. And so that just kind of shows you what the different genetic traits or diversity, right, through the products and how each product's different.
Yep.
So you're going to find products that likes to throw less around but more in length. You're also going to find products that like to go more deep kernels versus rows around. There's just a lot of different things that our product team selects products for, right?
And I'm just assuming that this test plot was all planted the same day.
Yes, yep. So this test plot was planted in, I believe, late April, maybe early May. I'm trying to remember back to the exact day. we decided to try something here. It was a little wet that day, and we kind of wanted to see some early seedling vigor as far as our products on cold and wet conditions. And we actually got a perfect stand on this farm, and my dealer and I were very happy to see that seedling vigor. And when I talk early seedling vigor, that's pretty much the strength of that product as it's coming out of the ground, as far as what conditions can it handle. Because if Northeast Missouri, you never know what you're going to get that time of year. When we're planting, when the farmers are out there planting. It may be 80 one day and it may be 55 the next.
All right. So we had 16 around.
16 around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And we had about 40 long there.
All right. So times 40, 640.
Right, and there's 34,000 plants in an acre.
On the other one, we did 32.5. So we want to go with that?
I think so.
All right. Let's keep it at 32.5. All right, so we're at 20,800,000. We're going to divide that by 85.
Yeah, so if we do 85,000 on that one, that's going to give us a nice conservative number. Something I like about this product is the kernel depth that it puts on. So if I was, if I was wanting to get a real high number, I'd go with something like 75 or 80,000. But just to be conservative, let's do 85,000.
What do you think that is?
Holy smokes. Think that's 241 bushel.
244.
Not bad.
This isn't bad for your first day, is it? All right, so just comparing those ears right there, I mean, we can tell this one here has more of a tip back.
Right.
So let's figure this one here and just see what the difference is between those two ears based on the tip back. What, if we had a field full of this and a field versus this, let's just see what the difference is with that tip back.
Right. All right. So
sounds good.
On this product here, we're 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 around.
All right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 long.
Times 33, so we lost 7 kernels right there. So 33 times 32.5. That's 17,160,000. We're going to divide it by 85,000. 201. So we lost what, 40 bushels to the acre just by having an inch less of kernel there. Isn't that something?
And now something I think is important to point out is that more than likely this product here, if you look at this corn ear, this was probably more in a 32,000 type of stand. This one here was probably more in the 34. So this one's going to have a lot more plants,
More competition.
More competition. And so I think that's the biggest thing you're going to notice here. There's a lot of factors that could play into this, but more than likely it was competition and availability of nutrients to that plant.
But I think what's really impressive, or maybe not impressive, not the right word, but most people would not realize an inch less of growth is going to cost us about 40 bushels to the acre. And we're starting to figure, $3.50 corn, which we hope it's $3.50 this fall at least, that adds up real quick.
It adds up real quick, and that is at the end of the day to the bottom line to the farmer or landowner, depending on how your current situation's set up.
You definitely want to make sure these planters are calculated and when we're out there planting, don't we?
Right. And it's so important. You'll hear a lot of guys say that the planter pass is the most important pass of the year, and it couldn't be more true. And that just simply comes down to this right here is what hybrids do we want to select for that acre? What's the population we want to select for that acre? Because at the end of the day, we want to see ears like this and increase that ROI for not only the farmer, but the landowner.
Well, Zach, I appreciate everything here today on the corn plot. Let's hop across the road and check out these Beck's beans.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So in this area alone, we're going to have around 9 soybean varieties on the Enlist side that we offer, and then flip that over to the XtendFlex side. We're also going to offer around 9 soybean varieties over there. Now XtendFlex is a little bit different than Enlist, so XtendFlex is going to offer dicamba resistance, which gives us the opportunities to spray dicamba early season as a burn down for our beans.
They kind of get that dicamba figured out?
Right now, there is no label for the dicamba herbicide, so as it sits right now, if we were to be in planting season for next year, we would not be able to spray the dicamba herbicide, and that's very important to farmers. That's very important on keeping these fields clean, being able to improve their, increase the maximum efficiency of their herbicide program for their beans. And right now, they're unable to use it.
When you have a weedy field, you don't realize the amount of nutrients those weeds take away from the seed itself.
Right, right.
I mean, it's crazy. You get a bunch of foxtail or horseweed or whatever you want to call it out there. I mean, or even, volunteer corn from last year. I mean, it will really take the moisture away from the crop and really pull the seed back.
Right, and so if you'll notice, this field's very clean, but if we were to go out there into a field that has some weed pressure, you can pull the plant beside it, kind of look at the bean pods, kind of look and see what it's producing.
Yeah.
And you'll notice a significant decrease in production of that soybean plant just due to competition.
Yeah, I've noticed it over the years, in the combine. When we get into an area that's, the sprayer missed or something happened there, I mean, you can really tell it, the yield monitor goes down real quick.
Right, and that's why farmers, number one, they don't like the way it looks.
Yeah,
right? They don't want to see the weeds in their field, but also you're losing money every day that those weeds are taking over. So
absolutely.
Herbicide programs is very important on the soybean side because of soybeans being a broadleaf, right? So all of our broadleaf herbicides will kill the soybeans. Those are the same herbicides we use across the road on the corn side.
Yep.
So what they're doing as far as the ag industry goes is they're working on some different soybean programs where they can start adding some of those broadleaf herbicides into that. Not only the dicamba and the 2,4-D, but they're going to start stacking some other herbicide resistance onto that as well.
All right.
To keep battling these weeds.
So one thing over here on the corn, we talked anywhere from 90-day to 120-day corn. Tell us a little bit about the beans, the maturity dates on those.
Yeah, so as far as relative maturity goes on beans, it's a lot different than the corn side because a bean plant doesn't necessarily work off of the same maturing factor as a corn. So corn's going to work off of growing degree units. Beans are going to be more determinant on sunlight. And so things are a little bit different when you talk about the maturity of a bean. But as far as northeast Missouri, as far as, moving into southeast Iowa and down into central Missouri, you're going to see a lot of anywhere from 3.4, okay, that's the RM of a bean, up into around the 4.5 to 4.6.
Now, what is RM?
So RM stands for relative maturity.
Okay.
And that is just how quick that bean is going to mature itself down based on the sunlight that it is offering. And so soybeans are really neat, actually, if you kind of dive into them. And I wish we had one of our agronomists here today to kind of explain it to you. But they're based on the amount of sunlight they get during a day.
Okay.
We're getting into September now, where it's going to start getting dark at 7:30, 7:45 at night. That soybean plant realizes, hey, summer's almost over. It's time to kick it into high gear. I need to go ahead and start filling these pods with beans. I need to be cranking all my nutrients into the bean itself. So when I say into the bean itself, we're not harvesting the leaves. We're not harvesting the stalks or anything like that.
Yeah, the stems. Yeah, we're just getting that pod.
We want the pod, and inside the pod is actually going to be the bean.
Yep.
And right now it's going to look similar to a lima bean. If you folks at home have ever eaten some lima beans, that's kind of what we're going to be looking at right now.
Yep.
As that bean is really wet and still got a lot of moisture. But
and we're shooting for 4 to 5 beans per pod. That's what we want.
That's what you want. On average, you're going to see 3 bean pods pretty much on every plant.
Yep.
Now, on those ones where you're going to find the 4 bean pod, and if you can find a 5 every now and then, that's where you're going to start really seeing the yield bump
cha-ching.
Up. You're thinking, man, these are doing great. So as I open them up, they're going to look a lot like lima beans this time of year. And then when they start to dry down, so what we're going to do, right now, they look really similar to a lima bean. As that plant starts to mature, it's going to suck the moisture out of this bean pod, and they're going to be little round soybeans.
Yeah, just swell, just kind of swell up and be yellow.
Yeah, they're going to be yellow. They're going to be round. They're going to have a little dark spot on them. And what's crazy about soybeans is that's actually the same exact soybean that we're going to turn around and plant next year to raise the next crop. Corn is different. Corn is a hybrid. Corn is, you're going to take 2 inbred parents and make a hybrid, because no different than cattle, no different than hogs, chickens, what we've learned is that heterosis actually creates a bigger hybrid, right? And so that is what we're doing over on the corn side. On the soybean side, it's just breeding. It's just, finding that best bean, taking that best bean and planting it again, right?
Yep.
And just trying to keep pushing the needle on beans. But that's something that I think is real neat, is that actually our farmer cooperators will raise next year's seed for us.
Okay.
And we'll actually pay them a premium
Yep.
to raise next year's seed crop that we then turn around and sell in the bag.
You guys clean it, you get it, clean them, bag them, put them right back out to the farmer.
Yep. So
Okay.
we will take the bean in, we'll kick out all of the dead beans, the ones that have no germ to them, germination. We're going to kick out the ones that don't have any test weight to them, any density to them. They run through several different cleaning processes, and then we're going to treat them. We're going to put some different seed treatments on there that help with fungicides. You know, we're having insecticides on there that really help with that early seedling growth. And then we turn around and we sell it to the farmer to plant the next year.
Gotcha. Planter was set up on 15-inch rows, correct?
Yep. So these are 15-inch rows. This is our 4150 variety. It's a 4-1 maturity. On that enlist side, it's in that enlist camp. But something that is kind of interesting about beans is you're going to have some smaller statured beans. You're going to have some taller statured beans. And this one here is more of our medium tall variety.
Okay.
We're going to put this on a tougher piece of dirt just because.
So we're probably looking at the hill dirt.
Right.
Example.
Right. You're going to put this on your Class B and stuff like that.
and D farm.
Now it can still run on the Class A stuff, but we have other products that maybe stay a little bit shorter, might not get as what I would like to call rank. That's what I call them. But you know, you'll see lodging and things like that where the beans start to kind of lean over on that heavy dirt if they get too tall.
Yep.
As you can see here, we're both kind of taller fellas, and these are, you know, these are belly button high. So good beans here.
Good stand of beans.
And my dealer actually has a couple of tests here that we're going to be able to check the differences in population.
Okay.
And so Case Beer Ags did a plot on 130,000 versus 160,000, and they were able to do some really cool things. Yeah, you get a picture of that.
Making money today.
But yeah, Michael Casebeer with Casebeer Ag was able to do a 130,000 population bean study versus 160,000. He really just wanted to see what differences are we going to notice in that bean plant as far as more competition, as far as is it going to get taller?
Yep.
Is it going to get bushier? How many pods is it going to put on?
And I'm assuming they were side by side?
Yes.
Same field, I mean, same day planted and everything?
Yes, same day planted.
Nice.
All he had to do, and that's the great thing about technology, is he just changes the population on his monitor, goes in and plants right beside it, same variety. And that's honestly just really good research. That's saying, hey, what's best for this area right here in Northeast Missouri? Is it going to be 130,000 beans per acre? Is it going to be 160,000 beans per acre? And so we'll know when harvest comes which one was more profitable.
Yep.
So,
well, I know just kind of, you know, spreading these out, I mean, wow, I mean, they're just loaded with pods and going all the way to the ground pretty much.
right.
So, I mean,
So something you notice here on this year, we've had a really good year, and what you'll see a lot of years is you'll see the bean plant start to abort from the bottom up as it gets rid of those early branches. See how there's some leaves already on the ground there. But something I've noticed this year, as good a year as we've had, is it's still keeping most of the pods on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so if you notice here, there's pods that are only this far off the ground, and so as our friend Michael goes through with the combine, he's going to have that bean head
on the ground
about that far off, picking these beans off, because every time we lose a pod, the old timers will tell you that's 1 bushel.
Yeah.
If you lose a pod per plant per acre, that's 1 bushel.
Yep.
And so we really are going to be really cognizant of, hey, let's get this whole bean plant, let's take our time, because we've got a great crop here, and they're going to need it all.
Yeah, what do they say? In August, the month of August, every inch of rain, it's 3 bushels to the acre of soybeans.
One of my friends is a dealer, Beck seed dealer up in a different county. He always says August rain makes beans.
Yep.
And it couldn't have been more, you know, I couldn't agree more with him. Last year we had no August rain, and the beans struggled. Now this year we've had 3 timely August rains, and when I say 3, those are 3 big ones, right?
Yep.
We just had a couple inches there the other night up in northern Clark County. It was kind of spotty. But
yeah, it was. My dad just lives, what, about 4 miles from you?
Yeah,
probably
we're not far.
As the crow flies, and he texted me and said 3.3 inches, and I was
That's
like,
unreal.
gee whiz, we need to shut her down.
Yeah.
I'm going to be hauling all fall.
Yeah, you're going to be busy. You're going to have a lot of beans to haul off.
Yep.
Because you guys are kind of up there in the garden spot up there.
We've been pretty lucky this year.
So, no, these beans here, they're just getting ready to turn off. As you see here, we're starting to get some yellow leaves. These beans are saying, hey man, it's just about time to shut things off. Go ahead and fill that pod. So up here towards the top, right now we're going to determine, okay, are we going to put a bean in here or are we not? And as you kind of press in there, you feel that, hey, they have put some beans in there. There's going to be some grain in there.
Yep.
Some of them are going to get aborted. They're just running out of time.
Yep. I mean,
But,
most of all these pods right in here, we're looking at, 3 beans.
Yep.
So 3 to
Every now and then you'll get a 2, but when
Yep.
you have 3s all around it, it kind of makes up for it.
Yep, for sure.
So as far as average pods per plant, this year I'm seeing a lot of 85s. I'm seeing a lot of anywhere from that 80 to 90 pods. But if you find the right situation, we found some the other day with 240 pods. We found some with 150 pods, and they were all 2 to 3 beans, and they were all full.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation, the field that they're in, and when they were planted. And at the end of the day, what we notice is early planted soybeans are still the way to go, because the yield that you lose as you lose time is...
that thing just loaded with pods.
Right. When were these planted, Michael? I'm kind of going off cuff here. Sorry, Jake.
You're good.
So we're looking at 1 seed here, correct?
Yes, that is one seed. Yep.
And put off, what, 4 different...
Main branches,
Yep,
yeah.
branches.
So I would call that a node. So as you kind of go up this plant, what we try to do is we try to count nodes. Sorry, I'm not taking it from you there, but
No, go for it.
So when this was an early plant, there was a node there that aborted. That's normal. We're going to see that a lot.
Okay.
But
Wait just a moment for our viewers. What's a node?
so a node is going to be every place that bean plant decides to kick out a branch.
Okay.
And since we had such a good year, you're going to notice that as it kicked out a branch down here at the bottom, they decided to stay. So if you look here, they really kicked them out early. So we've got 1 node, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just go up the main stem. 6. There was one, let's see, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There's about 22 nodes there.
Wow.
In that plant, which is unreal, right? On a normal year, we're going to try to be around 18.
Okay.
That's a good, respectable plant. This year has just been such a good growing environment here in Northeast Missouri that we've got around 22 nodes on that bean plant. Now, we can take it back and count pods. You're going to be somewhere around 90 pods on that plant, which is very impressive. That's what we like to see. But every now and then you'll see some areas with lower population put on more pods, and that's where you get up into your 150s and your 200s.
Got it. So for this one right here, what was the population here, you reckon?
What was it? 140. So the population in this field, we did 140.
140.
So that's 140,000 soybeans planted in this acre.
Okay.
On a 15-inch row. And so if you notice, we're not going to get every single bean's going to come up,
Yep.
right? So industry standard, we like to see somewhere around 90% germ.
Okay.
That's germination rating there, percentage-wise. So if you take 90% of 140,000, you're going to be anywhere around 130. Yeah, you're going to be at 126, something like that.
Yep.
I'm kind of shooting from the cuff there, Jason, but
Yep.
126,000 plants per acre if we got a 90% stand, if we got a 90% stand
Yes.
of that 140.
Yep.
So
We're here and we're talking about it. Let's go ahead and figure out what this bean here would do.
Right. Something we're going to do here is we've just got to count each bean pod.
Yep.
And so I'll go ahead and this is one branch off of that bean plant. I'm going
Okay.
to go ahead and take this one. Otherwise, we might be here a while.
All right.
So you just count the pods, and I'll count the pods on this one. So I got 34.
I had 22.
Okay, so right there we're at 56. I'll let you count that one. I'll take the main stem. I had 46.
16.
Okay, so right there is 62 plus 56.
118.
118 pods on that plant.
For
Now,
that plant.
so soybeans is a little bit tougher to go ahead and estimate the yield, but something I always try to do is I just say, hey, let's be fair about this and let's do 2 or 2.5 beans per pod.
Okay.
I don't want to try to say that there's going to be 3 beans in every single pod.
Yeah.
Right, and I also don't want to say that even the 3 bean pods is going to fill that 3rd bean. There's a lot of times it'll abort that top bean.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and just take 2 beans.
118 times 2 beans.
Yep, times 2 beans per pod. So
All
we've
right.
got 118 pods. We've got 2 beans.
236 beans
On that plant?
On that plant, yep.
Okay, so then I'm gonna take a 90% stand of that 140,000, which hold on, we're gonna need to cut that, Jake.
90%?
140 times 0.90 is 126. Jeez. Isn't that what I said?
What?
I said 126.
You did say 126.
I did. That's like, I'm like Rain Man.
I know.
Let's cut that out too,
Jake. That's why I called you.
Let's cut that out too.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're shooting for 90% stand on these beans at 140,000. That's right there around 126,000 plants in this acre. So we're gonna take that 218
Yep.
times 126,000.
Okay.
Now, the soybean size is where there's a lot of variation as far as
Yes.
estimating the yield.
Yep.
Did we have a lot of rain? Is it going to put out, 3,600 seeds per pound, which is really small, or is it going to put out 1,800? We have no idea
until we get into them. Yeah,
right.
exactly. So it's just ballparking here.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide by 3,600 seeds per pound.
Okay.
So we're going to have to take a bushel of soybeans is 60 pounds.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to take 60 pounds times 3,600 beans. I always use 3,600 because that is the most conservative number that I can use, right? It's probably going to be closer to 2,800 beans per pound.
Okay.
But I'm going to take the 3,600 just to be, so that ends up being 216,000 beans per bushel.
Okay.
So you take your 218.
Yep.
That is beans per plant.
Okay.
Times 126,000 bean plants per acre.
Yep.
Now we're going to divide that by 216,000
216,000
beans in a bushel.
Beans in a bushel.
Yep. And that is a very conservative rating. What did we come up with?
127.
Now, I don't think it's going to quite do 127, so we better just pump the brakes. Now,
I mean, they're good beans,
they are
but
good
I don't
beans.
know if they're going to be that good.
They're not going to be that good, but see, that's the problem with estimating soybean yield.
Yes.
Okay, and we went very conservative there. We went 2 beans per pod.
Yep.
We went 3,600 beans in a pound. We also did 90% stand. So you can start to really fluctuate numbers and really back all that stuff off, but that's why I always have trouble telling what a bean yield's going to be.
I'm feeling more confident with our corn yield average than I am with the beans. I mean, these are Beck's beans. I mean, they could possibly do that, right?
Right. I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance. I just double checked my math, and I don't know what else we can do, Jason.
Yeah.
That's something that
if they're good, they're good.
They're good. They're good. Yeah.
Casey Bear Ag, they only had good beans.
That's right. We may get back here, and they may be 120 bushel. And, and if they are, Mike will call us.
Oh shoot! I'd love to be able to come out here in the combine when they're cutting through this and see how good they are.
Now, do I think it's out of question to see some 80 and 90 bushel beans? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of that this year, but that's why I don't do a ton of soybean yield estimates, is just because it's hard to put a number on those beans that, sometimes a pod won't put anything on. It decides to abort late season, and there's nothing we can do to estimate.
Oh yeah, I mean, that bean there had what, 4 nodes?
Right.
The next plant may only have 2.
Right. And they made 4 main branches on that. That's unreal.
Yep.
Right.
So earlier, I think you guys pulled a couple beans stems out there to take a peek at. Let's step out there and look at those.
Something that Michael Casebeer with Casebeer Ag was able to do this year was a population study. And this is simply just, hey, what works best in this area? What are we going to do to maximize that yield potential for my customers? And so he went ahead and put 130,000 plants per acre versus 160,000 plants per acre.
Okay.
And so
I'm guessing, just looking at it, is this the 160,000?
Yes, that's 160,000. So as you hold them side by side, you kind of notice that one's bigger than the other, one's got more pods. So I have the lower population, there's less competition, things like that. Now,
just a bigger plant?
Yeah, just overall bigger. Now, something I want to point out is normally, as we push population, you're going to see a taller bean. They're just competing. Do we want to wait on this car to go by?
You're good.
Okay. Normally, as you plant more beans per acre, what you're going to notice is that the beans decide to grow taller faster because they're fighting against the beans beside them.
Gotcha.
Now, as this one is, you hold them side by side, you're going to say, hey, this one I'm holding is taller. But I think as you stand it up, it's really just bushier.
Yeah.
And these other nodes that made it are actually going to be more laying down to the side, where that one's going to be a more straight up kind of architecture plant, just because it's fighting for sunlight. But yeah, you will notice on the lower population there are definitely more pods here. It's definitely a stronger looking plant, a little thicker stalk.
Yep.
And that's something big to kind of point out, is that, hey, you've got a stronger stalk here. You're using less beans per acre to plant, and so that goes into your ROI as well.
Yep.
So that's kind of something that Michael is wanting to test out this year is, hey, even though I'm a seed dealer, can I sell these guys less beans and they make more money? And so that's to me, that's a very honest way of doing business. It's a very good piece of of information that he's offering his customers. And so we're trying to do more with less.
Yep. So just real quick, I think it'd be good to maybe count the pods.
Right.
Let's see, hey, how many pods are on a 160,000 plant versus the 30,000 plant?
Right. Let's do it.
All right.
I'll do the 130.
All right. Sounds good. All right. 83.
I came up with 99.
At 99. So
Yeah.
99 pods on that plant that was planted at 130 some thousand.
Yep.
And the 88 on 160,000.
Right. And
Gotcha.
it's important to point out that these are the exact same variety of soybean. Okay. And so
Planted the same day.
planted the same
Same
day.
field, next to each other.
Yep.
Just 30,000 population difference.
Same planter, same everything.
Yep.
The only thing we changed was the amount of seeds we put in per acre. And so I think it's important to point out that at 130,000, you've got to kind of get the combine in there to figure out who's going to win, right?
Yes.
We've
Yep.
got more pods on this plant, but there's more of those plants out there. And so
Yep.
on a good year like this, I would say that just my opinion, the more plants out there is going to win, because we had enough water to go ahead and fill out those plants.
Finishing them out. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
On a drier year where we're getting a little bit more droughty, less plants is probably going to equal more, because there's less resources to go around. Everybody can be happier if there's less plants out there. So
One thing I noticed on this particular plant here, this 3850, the pods are all pretty much filled out. I mean, and a lot of 3-bean pods, and they're you can feel them in there. I mean, they're good.
Right.
They're good beans.
right, yeah, this 3850 is a real tough acre hybrid for us. It's the first one out of the ground, strong emergence. We're going to put it on some of that clay pan soil, some of that maybe Class C stuff, more of a rolling hill, tighter clay soil where it can't quite get as much water. That's where we're going to put this 3850, as it is just kind of, it's not going to be your top end yielder, but it's going to be great on some of those tougher acres.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
something we
They'll
also
be pretty nice. They're going to
Right.
finish out real nice.
we notice it's a little bit further along than the 4-1 we already walked through.
Yes.
So that kind of shows you that maturity there. These beans are a little bit thicker. They're a little bit more round. They're starting to mature a little bit further along, I guess you'd say,
Yep.
than the 4-1 bean that we were in just a little bit ago.
Yep. So one thing, Zach, we're sitting here talking about, genetically modified seeds and all that. Last year, up there, on our farm in Northeast Missouri, north of Cahokia, we're about right on the Iowa line, basically.
Right.
And, last July and August, I mean, it was just dry. It did not look good. And, Dad and I were talking, man, it's going to be a tough year.
Right.
Well, we got the combine rolling, and we were shocked. My dad's 67 years old now, and last year was his best corn crop ever. And I was telling Dad, if we'd have been back in the 80s with that type of summer and the way we finished, we'd have been lucky to have, 70, 80 bushel corn.
Right.
And here we are rolling out 180 plus bushel corn. I was telling Dad, I mean, they have modified these seeds to take that drought.
Right.
And can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's amazing as far as genetic gain that the industry has experienced over just the past 10 years. I think I've been in the industry for 10 years now, and just 2014 was my first year in the ag industry, and yeah, that was a great year for us. But as you start to go along and you start to see the genetic gain, and you start to see they're averaging anywhere from 1.5 to 2 bushels per year,
Yeah.
and that's overall average on just genetic gain, on just new products coming to the lineup.
It's just crazy.
It is, and if you think about last year, man, it was not fun. It was dry. We couldn't buy a rain, and you talk to a lot of the old farmers in the gas station after harvest was over, and they said, man, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we would have had 0.
Yeah.
We would have had 5 bushel in the field, and this year we had 180 to 200.
Yes.
And I think that goes a lot to, there's 2 things. I think genetic advantage, I think genetic gain is big, but I also think the cooler nights played a big role in that. As you think about corn, it likes a cool night. It likes to be able to open up its pores a little bit and transpire some of the gases out. If you think out a corn plant is just a big factory, and it's got all those gases building up. It needs to get rid of some of that stuff. And so I think last year the cool nights. If you look back at the weather patterns, it got below 70 a lot of nights, and that was very important, even though it was very dry. And then we also got a very important rain that first week of July. Some people had anywhere from 6 to 10 inches.
Yeah.
But that was one of the only rain events we had the whole year.
One thing, we did have some heavy dews out there, and
Yes.
those, I mean, people don't realize the amount of dew, how much that can help the crop out there.
And that's a great point you bring that up. So what they're finding now, especially when spraying like a fungicide, I'm kind of switching gears here, but the dew on the beans is very important. When you're spraying a fungicide, because at the end of the day, you're just using it as water. You're using the dew out there as a natural source of water. And so, yeah, very important. We did have a lot of heavy dew.
And another nice thing, you know, once a crop gets up and matures, it canopies.
Yes.
And it'll help hold that moisture in the ground.
Right.
You know, I was walking out in the field yesterday, and I mean, I couldn't believe how damp it was still out there in the dirt. I mean, it wasn't picking up on my shoe, but I expected it to be a lot drier out there.
And I think, I think that's very important. You mentioned canopy. We can kind of twist that a little bit into organic matter in the soil, cover crops and things like that. So for you folks out there kind of looking to, invest in a farm and maybe build that up for the next generation, we kind of talked about that. Soil health is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And cover crops can help you utilize that. They can help you hold that moisture in there. They can help you hold that nutrients, and just at the end of the day, add more organic matter to the soil.
Yep. You know, so many times I hear guys and gals say, oh, we had a soil test done on the farm out there, and they're going out there and pulling one sample out in the middle of the field and basing the whole farm off of that. And I just think that's great. But, if you're really going to do it and you want to know what's good and you're wanting to build that farm up for the next generation and generation after, you need to be putting that on a grid sample. What do you recommend? An acre, 2 acre every for the grids?
Yeah, so if you want to get pretty serious on it, you can put an acre grid out there. I think that's really important. You need to set your foundation. You need to know where you're at.
Yeah.
If you're just buying a farm, or you're just farming it for the first year for a new tenant, or say you're a landowner comes in and you're going to get a new tenant, that tenant needs to know where he stands.
Yeah.
He needs to know everything about that soil to be able to know what to put down for that next year's crop. And I think a 1 acre grid is great. If the field doesn't fluctuate a ton, you can go more like 2 acres.
Yep. I have mine set up on 2.5 acres. And that's the first thing I do when I buy a farm is I have a 2.5 acre grid set up. And then, if it needs lime, I'm going to put the lime on it.
Right.
And then also when I go to my tenant farmer, I can show him, hey, here's my grid sample on 2.5 acres. Here's what you're dealing with.
Right.
And I do everything on a cash rent.
Yep.
And they can look at that and then kind of give me a better idea on what the cash rent is, because they know how good the farm is, what the soil health is out there on that farm.
And just from the farmer side, I mean, that's very important that you're willing to take that extra step and go out there. You're not just looking for the absolute best return. You're looking to also partner with that farmer and say, hey, I want this to be a very healthy farm. I want to have good pH in my soil.
Yep.
So that's important. I mean, if you don't have the right pH in your soil, it's going to bind up all your nutrients anyway.
And for those that don't know pH, can you touch on that, what that is?
That's the acidity of the soil. So the acid level, 7's going to be a neutral, right? And that's where we all like to be. We'd all like to be at 6.5 to 7. But at the end of the day, if your soil is too acidic, what it does is it actually binds up the nutrients in the soil, and it doesn't make that readily available for the crop. So you can put as much fertilizer on as you want to, and at the end of the day, it's not going to help.
And going back to touching on that, if you're that person who goes out and pulls one soil sample, and that soil sample comes in at 5, and they go, you need to raise your pH, you need to put this many ton on per acre, when really that may have been the worst spot in the whole field where you pulled that soil sample from. So if you set it up on a 2.5 acre grid, you're going to get a better idea of what the pH is on that farm overall.
Right.
And now you can go out there and set the machine when they're putting that lime on. Okay, hey, we're in an area where we need 4 ton to the acre. So they'll open it up and just blow the lime on, and then they get into an area where, we're at 6.5, they can shut it down and really slow down the amount of lime going on to that area. And it's money
money well spent.
Well spent.
Yeah.
And plus, you know, if you're putting too much on, you're going to get it above 7, and it just,
Right.
or, you know, it's just not a good deal.
Right. So as far as the variable rate, kind of like you mentioned,
variable rate,
we
exactly.
talked about efficiency of our nitrogen application on our corn, right? The timing and the efficiency of it, because today farming is a lot different than it was when our grandpas were farming, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And they were probably farming together at the same time. It's very different. We're using technology. We're using, you know, things like variable rate. We're using auto steer. We're using exact emerge, different things. You know, we have all these different things to make this. It's more of a. It's not just kind of plant and pray, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's more of a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very precise. It's very
Precision planning.
Precision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Precision planning. And so when you talk about variable rate, that's just one more way to make yourself more efficient and more competitive in the market, because farming is a very competitive occupation right now.
Absolutely. I mean, you do a soil report and you're paying, you know, let's say, I don't know, just say $1,000 to do that one pull,
Right.
and there it is. Versus a 2.5 acre grid might cost you, let's say, $5,000.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's another $4,000. But when you're going out there and spreading lime, or you're spreading your fertilizer,
Where you don't need it.
Exactly. Then
Right.
you're just pissing money away.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly right. If you want to be efficient in your fertilizer application, you've got to know where your base is, and you got to know where you're at.
Yep.
And if you can save that money on the acres over here that don't need it, right, then it's paying for that grid sampling.
And what I love to see is when they do harvest and you get them yield reports,
Yep.
you can almost take that yield report and lay it right down next to your grid sample. And you're like, oh yeah, it did really good in that area. And then you look at what your, you know,
Right.
your fertilizer and lime was over here, and you're like, well, exactly.
Right.
I mean, that was your best part of your farm.
They line up.
Yep. I was
every
always,
time.
you know, when I started getting into real estate and really taking off on it, you know, I was telling my grandpa, who passed away in December at 95, I said, you know, the best part of your farm's right out there. It's that Edina soil, and that's your Class A dirt. He kind of nodded his head, and he said, well, that part of the farm always yields better than everything else. I'm like, there you
There
go.
it is.
That's the best soil on the farm.
Right.
So-
and things are just so different.
Oh,
They,
yeah.
you know,
Yep.
when Bob started farming, you know, years ago.
Oh yeah,
it
he'd
was-
been in his teens. you
Right,
know?
two-row,
Yep.
probably
Oh,
two-row
yeah.
planter, and it
Yep.
might have been 3-point mounted on the back of an old Alice Chalmers.
Yep.
I mean,
Gleaner combine with no cab.
right, right, and they were probably picking whole ears at that time. So
Yep.
it's just so much different than it used to be. But as you know, as the industry changes, so does our technology, so does our hybrids, so does our soybean varieties, and so does how we have to approach things.
Well, you just have to be willing to change. You know,
Right.
Before Grandpa passed, he always said today's farmers aren't really farming.
Right.
Because, you know, I mean, the tractor's driving itself, the combine's running itself, you know.
Right.
And in their mind was that, you know, hey, if you're not out there doing it
Manually,
all,
yeah.
exactly, you're just not doing it right.
Right.
So,
And I told somebody this the other day, you know, back in our grandpa's day, the hardest worker was usually the most successful. And anymore, yeah, you've got to have hard work, but you've also got to have business savvy, and you've got to be able to change with the times.
work smarter, not harder.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Zach. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking
Yeah.
the time and meeting us out here today.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
I think it was great information. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot. And again, folks, this is Zach Nixon with Beck Hybrids. Zach?
Yeah, appreciate you guys stopping in. Jason, appreciate the opportunity. I want to kind of shout out Case Beer Ag, Michael Case Beer, for letting us check out his corn and bean plots. And yeah, if you guys are interested in Beck's hybrids, just give me a call, and we'd be happy to help you guys out and get you in touch with a local dealer.
All right, and that's it, folks. Jason Wallingford with Trophy Properties and Auction. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. I can be reached at 314-882-6971. See you soon.
I hope you all found that as interesting as I did. I want to give a special thanks to Jason and Zach for taking the time to teach us something today. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you're interested in buying or selling land, whether it be tillable, hunting ground, recreational property, whatever, give us a call at Trophy Properties and Auction. Now get out there and feed the family.